On today's Locked On NBA Game Night, the Warriors advance to round two. The Pacers pull off a major upset. We're going to talk about it all right now.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are locked on to NBA Game Night. Every game, every night. We appreciate you being an everydayer and making Locked On NBA your first listen every single day. Really fun show. My name's Gavin Schall. I'm the co-host of the Locked On Knicks podcast, filling in for Danny Cunningham. He's your every week co-host, Swipa. How did you enjoy the Nuggets taking Game 7 over the Clippers, man? I'm sure it's been a good weekend for you.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a more stressful experience than previous, given how last year went for the Denver Nuggets, being up 15 at half, and then being up 20 with 8 minutes left in the third quarter. And so they were able to, thankfully, on at least on their end, to do the job, to execute. They went on a 15-0 run in the third quarter. The lead went from 11 to 27, almost out of nowhere. So just a great performance all the way around. The Denver Nuggets had 6 players with 15 or more points in their Game 7, the first time ever in Game 7 history, in the history of the sport. So just a tremendous game. They get ready to take on OKC literally Monday night.
Yeah, I'm an avowed Russ hater, and I felt something on that dunk. That was cool. That was a great moment. But that is not what we were talking about today. We were going to get into Warriors Rockets. Warriors move on in an absolute slugfest. Indiana pulling off a major upset in game 1 of that series. And then we're going to rank the most exciting series as we head into round 2. But before we get into all that, I want to remind you this episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, without further ado, Charlie Walter has the latest on Golden State moving on to round 2.
Is a defensive masterclass for the Golden State Warriors, only allowing 89 points on the Houston Rockets home floor. 103-89 the final score. Clear storyline of the game is Buddy Hield coming off the bench and giving you a spectacular performance. 22 points in the first half. He had 6 3-pointers before the break. In fact, he had 22 points before Steph Curry even got on the board in this game. Fortunately, Curry was outstanding in the second half, scoring 19 of his 21. Buddy Hield hit some timely threes. He had 33, did Buddy Hield, to lead the way. Draymond was scoring. Jimmy Butler had an outstanding game, specifically hitting big shots when the Rockets tried to climb back into this thing. I mean, for the most part, it was the Warriors leading by, it felt like 10-14 the majority of this game. The Rockets would get it down to 5. They'd get it down to 4. They got it as close as 1 at a point in this game, and every single time it was either Hield, it was Curry, it was Butler hitting a big shot to propel the Golden State Warriors to a Game 7 win. Alperen Sengun struggled down low. The two big lineup of Adams and Sengun was not really able to establish a rhythm. Amon Thompson was awesome in this game, but not enough for a young Rockets team whose season ends and the Warriors advance to play the T-Wolves.
Swiper, did you also have that 1,000,000-to-1 ticket that Buddy Hield would score 22 before Steph Curry would get a bucket in this game?
I did not expect that at all. But look, I'm glad Buddy Hield showed
retired,
up.
Man. You retired on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, if you would have put that ticket in on FanDuel, then yeah, you would have been living very large. But yeah, this was just a great game all the way around. And honestly, it started off a little fuzzy because the scoring wasn't coming from Buddy Hield, and it wasn't coming from Jimmy Butler, and it wasn't coming from Steph Curry. It was actually Draymond Green that opened this game up for the Warriors scoring, making some 3-pointers in the first quarter, just to give them at least a little bit of runway to start hitting some shots. But their defense, honestly, was spectacular tonight. I love it when the Warriors are operating all on one accord defensively. I think the tandem of Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler is one of the best defensive front courts in the NBA. And then Podziemski, he kind of really dials in as well. Buddy Hield actually played a very good defensive game for a player, especially a Buddy Hield's caliber, you just wouldn't expect it from. But they had a lot of contributions all the way around, and it really started with their defense and obviously the extremely hot shooting from Buddy Hield that ended up being, I think, along with Jimmy Butler's closing, the biggest reason why they won this game today.
Yeah, I had two keys pregame that I wrote down. It was the first one was, can Fred VanVleet stay red hot? Because his last 3 games, he's basically been Steph, and he's been better than
Mm-hmm.
Steph. His last
Mm-hmm.
3 games, like, are just a ridiculous I think a true shooting percentage, something like the 80s. And the answer was no. Like, he wasn't terrible in this game. He had 17 points, right? 6 to 13, 3 for 6 from 3. Inoffensive,
Mm-hmm.
but like could not maintain the volume, could not maintain being the offensive fulcrum that opened up everything for Houston, right? In game 5 and game 6. Like, that was gone. And in turn, like, this series kind of came, I think it works out well because I think you and I were on the pod after game 1. It feels like this series has come full circle, right? This was the same game as game 1, a defensive war where the Warriors kind of outlast them, just make a few more shots. Again, helps a lot when Buddy Hield scores 22 of your first 48. The Rockets make a big run in the third quarter off superior athleticism. In game 1, it was just playing volleyball in the glass with the double bigs. In game 3, it was Amen Thompson, like, showing you why people are so incredibly high on his potential,
Yeah.
scoring on 17 of their 23 in the third quarter, and then they can't maintain it through the fourth. And the Warriors are just a more mature, more seasoned basketball team, right? I think that the sequence that changed the game, in my mind, is Amen pulls up kind of lame with that cramp play. Before that, Steph got a layup. Steph sees that he's not totally there, bangs a 3 at 75-62 at that point. And then Charlie said it, but Jimmy Butler down the stretch of this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting to his spots, like making a layup, or what ended up being kind of an ingenious, dirty play where Buddy Hield, to your point on his defense, picks up a steal, and Jimmy just kind of like jumps in front of Fred VanVleet, like trying to box him out in transition. VanVleet gets pissed, shoves him, transition take foul. Jimmy caps that off with an elbow jumper. Steph has a steal and a 3. At that point, it was 91-74, and it was night. The game was over. I do want to note real quick on Steph Curry, despite the terrible shooting game to start off, at least, like, finishes pretty decently, but did not score until 33 seconds left in the first half. I do think, I mean, obviously this is ever present with Steph, but what he did off the ball in this game was exceptional. I mean, you saw the Rockets go zone, and what they were doing was they would track Steph every time he would cut through, right? Because you can't lose him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Warriors, like, ingenious from Steve Kerr, just had Buddy Hield basically replace him every time. And the Rockets gave at least 2, maybe 3 threes, essentially just doing that. And I thought Houston's failure in the first half to adjust to the fact that Buddy Hield was having a Buddy Hield game, and he's done this before. We saw it in game 6 of Knicks Sixers last year with like 20 in the first half. He was able to swing a series. And like, whatever you think about Buddy Hield, whatever you think about the tertiary parts of his game, the guy has a pretty good case as a top 10 3-point shooter in league history. I don't think the Rockets adjusted fast enough, and they kind of got burned for it.
Yeah, that, and two, like, one of the most consistent things about the Rockets is that they have been so utterly reliant on Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun providing the offensive rebounding and play finishing for this team. And quite simply, you know, Sengun, who I think battled, like, that's the biggest thing. That's probably the biggest thing I think Rockets fans and NBA fans can take away from this series. They have a battler. He shot the ball 23 times, only shot 39% from the field. But one of the things that's been true about this series is been up to him and Steven Adams to continue to fight for extra possessions. And even today, Steven Adams, when they got back into the game and they were going on that run, Steven Adams gets a rebound on the baseline, throws it back out to Jabari, and Jabari hits his only 3 of the game, and the game gets back into single digits, even closer, and you started to see the momentum come back and be on the Houston Rockets side. But again, not just the veteran experience, but the shot making of Buddy Hield, the shot making of Jimmy Butler. And I honestly thought that was an ingenious play from Jimmy Butler when he steps in front of Fred VanVleet. You know, he's either going to get a pick here and you're going to get an easy basket, or Fred's going to overreact. And then in that instance, what you love to see is Jimmy didn't respond when he got thrown to the ground. Steph Curry also then makes his way onto that side of the floor, the step between him and Fred VanVleet to protect his teammate. So you saw the Warriors rallying, and you see the Warriors rallying around their veterans, and starting off with Draymond and then getting the performance you get, which is the most important performance of Buddy Hield's Warriors career. And I would dare say this is the best playoff performance we've seen from Buddy Hield perhaps in the last 5 to 6 years. Just a great performance all the way around. And this is the thing that carries them into the next series versus the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, game of a lifetime for him. Let's get the Rockets perspective from Jackson Gatlin.
The Houston Rockets season comes to an unfortunate end against the Golden State Warriors in Game 7. What's up? This is Jackson Gatlin, host of Locked On Rockets. And man, this was a game where the Rockets, they trailed by 12 at halftime, only scoring 39 points, 51-39 at halftime. Amin Thompson and Alperen Sengun tried their best to will the Rockets back into this game in the third quarter. They cut the lead to just 3 off of a Jabari Smith Jr. three-pointer. The Warriors were able to wrestle some of the momentum back. And then a little bit later on, Amin Thompson started cramping up, had to leave the game for a little bit. It led to a Steph Curry three-pointer where he basically died on a possession. And the Warriors were able to regain some momentum at the top of the fourth quarter. The Rockets just did not have enough offense in this game. Amin Thompson showed up, Alperen Sengun showed up, but not much support from anybody else up and down the roster. The Rockets now face some really big questions this offseason.
If you want to be optimistic and you're a Rockets fan, to your point, I have everything from Sengun, but I look to Amin, and this is first playoff series of his life, right? Second year in the league. And the way he stepped up in this game on a team where, like, obviously it's not his game right now. Tep plays designed for him, but the way he's just able to find points, like he starts this game, like beating Jimmy for a backdoor jam, then catching a Fred VanVleet air ball and having a layup, then getting a transition dunk plus a foul, had that absolutely like the bucket of the game probably is where he went behind the back to split Steph and Draymond into like this just like insane, like up and under circus finish. And the defense he played on Steph was again just like spectacular when he was trusted with that matchup. And if I'm a Houston fan, like I know however we want to restructure this team, if we want to go all in on a star, that like whatever trajectory Amin Thompson takes, like I think it's really encouraging to know, like even right now where he's like feels like he's light years away from having a usable jumper on this type of stage in this type of game, he can still completely change a basketball game against the team that's kind of owned the NBA over the last decade. And if that's the only thing you walk home with, and I don't think that'd be fair to Houston to say that, like that's still like a pretty good outcome for the Rockets.
Yeah, I think Sengun proved that there's some metal to his game, and that's really important that you have a player that's willing to fight and battle through shooting slumps, and who wants to rebound, who wants to do all the hard things that don't necessarily even show up on the box score. And I think Amin Thompson, I've said this before, I think he's going to be an all-NBA player at some point. I don't know when. I could be too early if I say it's the next 3 years, next 3.5 years, where you kind of get that level of performance from him consistently. But I think he has all the tools to end up being a two-way star in this league. And I just love the playmaking ability he has. He's just a very smart, intelligent, and fiery player. And I think he's going to have a lot of success for this future. We did not talk about Jalen Green, who is their leading scorer in this regular season, plays 29 minutes tonight, goes 3 of 8 from the field, just 8 points. And it's, again, just not a reliable enough, consistent perimeter operator. And in this league, you have to have a guard that can score, stretch the defense, and put pressure on the defense to open up for everybody else. And Jalen is just not yet there at this point in time in his career. And outside of one game in this series, I would say he's basically been disappointing in every other performance.
Yeah, I'm with you. Warriors moved to this. This was an insane stat that TNT had 68-6 under Steve Kerr when leading playoff games at halftime, 11-0 against the Houston Rockets. Man, Steph Curry has built a career on owning the Rockets. Houston fans will be celebrating the day he retires, but we'll talk a little Warriors Wolves before we wrap this one up. But next, the Indiana Pacers pull off a major upset in game one. We're going to talk about that in just a sec here on Locked On NBA Game Night. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. The world has made a lot of progress when it comes to mental health, but there's still a long way to go. Too many people still avoid therapy because they're afraid of being judged. But the truth is, taking care of your mental health should be just as normal as going to the gym or eating healthy. This Mental Health Awareness Month, let's normalize getting help and encourage everyone to prioritize their well-being, because when people feel supported, families, workplaces, and entire communities are better for it. I know personally I've benefited immensely from therapy. I look at it as something that's ultimately only additive at the end of the day. And with BetterHelp, getting started is easier than ever because it's fully online, has a network of over 30,000 licensed providers, and you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. You can even easily switch therapists, again, with no extra cost. We're all better with help. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, what's up, guys? We are back on Locked On NBA Game Night. From the West to the East, the Indiana Pacers won game one, and that means we have a happy Tony East reporting to us from Cleveland.
Pacers win game one on the road. They steal home court advantage right here in Rocket Fieldhouse. Tony East here with Locked On Pacers, 121-112. The final score here. I don't want to say the Pacers had to have this game, but it was getting close to that territory at times. They were blessed by a Darius Garland injury. He was out for Cleveland, one of their 3 All-Stars. His toe injury still bothering him. The Pacers were shooting extremely well from deep, well over 50%. They finished the game, I believe, at 52.9% from deep. Cleveland had an off night shooting. They finished around 23% from deep. Just a game the Pacers had to take advantage of, and so they were struggling keeping Cleveland out of the paint. Their offense was staccato at times, but in the end, the Pacers, who needed to win it, found a way to do it. They found enough buckets with some great threes in the fourth quarter. They got enough stops late. Tyrese Halburton defended very well in this game, a very rare compliment for him, but he deserved it. He was terrific throughout much of the game. Nembhard was great. Aaron Nesmith was great, and the Pacers are up 1-0. The only team right now with a second-round win. Will have much more on Locked On Pacers.
Indiana on the right track. I think Tony nailed the heart of this game. Obviously, the shooting differential almost impossible to overcome. I thought Cleveland made a pretty good run at it. What else did you see in this one that you thought you think is going to be sustainable for Indiana going forward beyond just being ridiculously high from 3?
Well, one of the things, you can check this on dunks and threes. The 3 most efficient offenses in the NBA this regular season was 1, the Cleveland Cavaliers, 2, the Denver Nuggets, and 3, the Indiana Pacers. And you got a chance to see some truly elite shot making from both of these teams. Tyrese Halburton. There's just not many words you can say. Again, Tyrese Halburton has proven time and time again that in terms of making decisive, efficient, elite decisions with the basketball, there might not be but 2 players in the world that are better than him at doing this. 22 points, 13 assists from Tyrese Halburton, and the level of shot quality that they got off of his passing or what he was doing on the floor was just incredible. And then also, too, if you didn't watch this game, the first 3 quarters was a shot-making exercise from both teams. Every single time the Pacers pushed it to a 9-point lead, 10-point lead, here came the Cleveland Cavaliers without Darius Garland, who, for me, Cleveland fans, you've heard, I think he was a 3rd-team All-NBA player this year. That's a very important piece to not have, especially the one that stirs the drink that is the Cleveland Cavaliers offense. But they still managed to get a lot of really good production around the team. Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, they all filled in trying to do the best job to replicate his success. But you get Donovan Mitchell, who gets 33 points today, but again, 1 of 11 from 3. That ended up being a lot of the story, just trying to force those threes up. Wasn't able to connect on a lot of them. But then you get Andrew Nembhard, and look, a 2nd-round pick, Gavin, who continues every single playoffs to show up and have huge moments. And he was 5 of 6 from 3 with 23 points and 6 assists, including playing stifling defense as often as he possibly could. Aaron Nesmith and Nembhard are just true badgers on the perimeter defensively, and they tried to make life heck for the perimeter players for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And Pascal Siakam also had a really good game. He was challenging Evan Mobley as much as possible. They're going to need also next time we see these 2 match up, they're going to need, as good as Evan Mobley was today, 20 and 10. If they're not going to have Darius Garland, it's going to have to come from him and Donovan Mitchell to do the job. So all the way around, this is going to be one of the best series of the playoffs. And man, you got to the end of that game, Gavin, and it was just like, wow, the Pacers 1 through 10 are a force to deal with.
You saw it last year when they played the Knicks, and even with Halliburton hurt, like weirdly might have played. You asked John Corrales, Locked On Celtics host, he'll tell you Indiana played Boston better than anyone in the playoffs last year. And at a certain point, like, we just have to accept this is real, and like it doesn't always feel real. And you look at like the talent on the roster, you're like, all right, is this team like just getting lucky with injuries? And they have certainly gotten lucky with injuries, but like they're legit. And Tyrese Halburton is legit, right? 13 assists to 1 turnover in this game. You essentially said the same thing I put down in my notes, like that I'm just not sure if there is a better player in the world at consistently, like expediently recognizing the simple decision and executing it over and over and over again. And it's just what makes him so incredibly special. And Tony mentioned it, but the defense down the stretch of this game was so impressive. Like he got Mitchell on a switch just inside 3 minutes, and Mitchell tries about 6 different moves on them. And like the biggest theme of this game, like if I want to come out of here with a positive for Cleveland, it would be that Indiana could not keep Donovan Mitchell away from the rim in this one. And yet on that play, Halburton holds up brilliantly, forces a tough miss layup, then a hit ahead to Siakam. It's a 4-point swing. So instead of being 112, 108, it's 114, 106. 13-4 Pacers run at this point. And then 2 plays later, like another play that might have saved the game, like chasing Max Strus around a screen, goes flying up in the air and blocks it, gets a piece of that shot. He was hunting Jared Allen down the stretch of this game, hit him first with a step back 3, then hit him with like mid-range step back, pump fake. Jared Allen bit on it.
Oh,
Takes one
the
long
step
to the
through.
rim,
Oh my
lays
gosh.
it in. Yeah, 116, 106 at that point with 150 left. You said it on Andrew Nembhard. I mean, he is just, again, as a Knicks guy, I saw it last year when he made that game-winning 3 in Game 3 that won the series for Indiana. But he's like a different dude in the playoffs, right? Like 26-footer, like right after the Halburton 3 that made it 107, 102. And then I think literally the next time down, hits another one from the right wing where Halburton runs a pick and roll with Miles Turner. Turner rolls, draws in 2 guys. Halburton automatic read, skip pass, 110, 104 at that point. Aaron Nesmith was huge in the third quarter, hit 11 points in the third, back-to-back threes at one point after Cleveland kind of pushed back into this game to cut the lead to 12. Really impressive. Siakam, the offensive rebound with 50 seconds left. I thought TJ McConnell had a great stint in the first half. And a big theme of this one is that, like, outside of Oklahoma City, these might be the 2 deepest teams in the NBA. Yeah. And, like, I thought Indiana's bench, even though Cleveland's bench, I think, is a little bigger, maybe a little bit more talented, like Indiana's bench, like, played them pretty even, if not outplayed them. It felt like neither one could really stop the other. But I'm talking a lot about the Cavs. I want to get the perspective here from our guy, Danny Cunningham, the host of Locked on Cavs.
Danny Cunningham here at Rocket Arena after the Cavs lose game 1 to the Pacers, 121 to 112. Let's talk about this one for 94 feet. Kenny Atkinson, after the game, he blamed the offense. The Pacers shot the ball incredibly well, over 50% from beyond the arc in this game. That's the biggest reason why they won this game. But the Cavs offensively played terribly from beyond the arc. Their second worst shooting game of the season. They were just 9 of 38 from deep. Donovan Mitchell, who had 33 points but needed 30 shots to do it, he was 1 of 11 on 3-pointers in this game. The Pacers had one of their best shooting nights of the season. The Cavs had one of their worst. Maybe that doesn't tell the entire story of this game, but I think it certainly tells part of the story of this game. So the Cavs, for the first time this postseason, they've taken a punch. They're down 0-1 in this series. They have to get up off the mat. They have to send a message back to Indiana on Tuesday night in Game 2 right here at Rocket Arena. Darius Garland, don't know his status, but I think it'd be a big boost for the Cavs if they can get him back. I will talk to you right here after Game 2.
Swipa, your takeaways from the Cavs in this one. Do you see anything to be worried about, or do you kind of come out the same way as Danny is like, all right, shooting variance, no Garland, they'll get this right?
No, but I have my concerns in that I think this is a 7-game series. I called this going into it. I think that the Cavs know how good the Pacers are. I just think the rest of the general NBA public doesn't know how good they are. So for them, I think this is a surprise. Like, how has this Cleveland team been this dominant this year, and yet they're struggling, even without Darius Garland, to consistently put up points versus this kind of Pacers team? And I don't think a lot of people realize this. The Cleveland Cavaliers starters are really good. They were really good this year. But, Gavin, if I told you that if you filter out NBA lineups by 60 minutes or more played, do you realize that the Indiana Pacers have the number 1 5-man unit in basketball in the playoffs right now with a plus 21 net rating with Nembhard, Hallie, with Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, and Miles Turner. So the Cleveland Cavaliers know what's in front of them. They also know they need Darius Garland to get this done. I think they more than likely will win Game 2, and then it's going to go back to Indiana, and they're going to steal one in Indiana, and we're going to come back to Cleveland with a 2-2 series. Because I think these teams are a lot closer, like I said, than folks realize. And it's going to come down to late game shot making, late game execution. But in order to get that job done, they're going to need, I think, their clutchest player in Darius Garland.
All right, you're incredibly excited about this series. We're going to see how exciting. We're going to come back. I'll give some final thoughts on the Cavs side of this, and then we're going to rank our most exciting series of round 2. But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, Where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's so easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. They offer surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and I save more. They offer all-in-one convenience instead of juggling multiple apps. You can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. They offer easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA, monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, let's wrap up this edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. Some final thoughts from me on the Cavs. I'm curious to see how Donovan Mitchell calibrates his approach the rest of the series, because I think him and Jalen Brunson very similar in this respect, where they're almost the opposite of Tyrese Halburton. Where Tyrese Halburton is a very proactive passer, very proactive in terms of getting his guys going. Donovan Mitchell, generally, maybe Danny could correct me on this if he shifted a little bit, but in the past, likes to get his scoring started, and then once he's drawing 2 or 3, then he'll start setting up teammates. And he's a spectacularly talented passer when he sets his mind to it. I thought the balance was a little off in this game. Danny mentioned it: 30 shots, just 3 of 13, just 1 for 11 from 3. You could see him all game. He was just clapping for the ball. And he had this crazy stretch, Swipa, in the third quarter, where he just he took over, and it was not always efficient. He missed a 3, then it was an offensive rebound, then he called for it back, and he just toast TJ McConnell for a tomahawk jam, and then he drove, he missed it, Mobley put it back, pushed in transition, only made 1 or 2 free throws, drove, flip it in. It was honestly, it was almost a grander version of what we saw from the Westbrook quote the other day. He's like, yeah, sometimes it's going to be a dunk, sometimes it's going to be a 3, sometimes I'm going to throw it out of bounds. Who knows what's going to happen? And it was just it was amazing, but it was also just a little chaotic. And I'm wondering if he can calibrate it, because I do think there's more that Evan Mobley and Jared Allen can do. Those two guys combined to shoot 15 for 20. And yes, a lot of those were spoon fed, but I thought Mobley, when he was driving, when he was battling downhill, physically, Cleveland did not have a lot of answers for him. 2 things that interested me: those two combined for just 15 rebounds, 0 free throws, and no blocks. I think I always go back, just because I'm a Knicks guy, to that Knicks series in 2023. And I still want to see playoff level physicality from those two. They showed it a little bit against Bam in the first round. I still think there's another level they can get to. And of course, having Garland back, I think sets everyone in the right role, and they'll probably be just fine. But it's time now to rank our second round series. So let's build some drama. Let's go backwards. What is the series you are least interested in to start the second round?
That's tough. Probably it's going to be the Knicks Boston. I like the Knicks. I think Jalen Brunson's going to be hopefully incredible in that series. OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Mikal. It's just they're all going to be good players. Mitchell Robinson, Karl Anthony Towns, Deuce McBride. It could end up being a really competitive series, but in terms of watchability, Warriors, Wolves, Nuggets, Thunder, and then you get this Pacers Cleveland team, it might end up being that Knicks series. But it's not because it's bad, but it's just relative to the other ones, it might not have the same kind of long, drawn out series as the other ones. But that's probably my short, right off the top of my head pick. What about you?
Yeah, I have the same exact pick. I picked on our official pick today. I said Celtics in 6. That's my heart pick. My brain pick is Celtics in 5. I don't really. The Knicks obviously failed to beat them in the regular season. And it's not a death knell, right? We saw Minnesota beat Phoenix in the same scenario last year, but the Knicks just don't really have answers for the questions that Boston poses, and Boston has a lot of answers, I think, for the questions the Knicks pose. They torched Karl Anthony Towns with that Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis pick and pop all year long. I do think it's an interesting series from an intel gathering perspective on both teams. Can Boston hit the same highs they hit last regular season, at times this regular season, and just dominate the Knicks and not play with the food? Can the Knicks wings? I think they need an A+ series from both OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges. In a perfect world, Josh Hart would hit some threes, and he's going to be a real focal point, because Boston is going to put their center on him, dare him to take a bunch of threes. He's going to have to make some, and the Knicks are going to have to disproportionately use him in the action. And when that happens, can they still get Karl Anthony Towns going and involved? So interesting questions, but I do think it's the least interesting series. My third one, I think you'll disagree with based on what you were saying. I have Pacers Cavs. It is really tough for me to justify that after what we saw today, because I just thought like it was amazing basketball, to your point, and I think it might be the most fun series. But in terms of interesting, I still kind of expect Cleveland to win in 6, and I'm still sort of doubting the Pacers despite everything I just said. But I could see a world where it goes 7. I could see a world where it's highly competitive. I think this is more of an endorsement on my end of those Western Conference series being so incredibly interesting versus Pacers Cavs not being great.
Well, third, it might end up being, I mean, this is a tough one too. I would say it could end up being the Warriors Wolves. There's a very real reality where the Wolves just punch them in the face because they're just so big, so physical, so talented. They have 8 NBA level starters on the roster. And it's just like, it's not going to be 2 games that they're going to get. They might get 1, maybe. They're going to struggle for that 1. So it could end up being that Wolves Warriors series at 3 for me.
All right. I see that. What do you have at 2?
Man, that's tough, man. Like, my brain again wants to say, I say my brain's going to tell me it's going to be Nuggets Thunder, but more than that's just because I don't know, like if the Nuggets thing is real, like if what we just saw is real, then this could be a long series. But also based on the regular season, this could not be a long series, and then the Thunder could just whatever and just win the series in 4 or 5. But if I'm going with how the playoffs had laid out, I'm going to say that's going to be the next on my list is number 2. I think that Jokic SGA thing is about to get real heavy, real. I think Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Russell Westbrook versus Chet Holmgren, Alex Caruso, J-Dub, Cason Wallace, Isaiah Joe, Isaiah Hartenstein. Like, that's going to be a matchup. And I think those are going to be some dog fights down the stretch of the series.
Yeah, I have the exact same answer. I think one of my favorite things watching basketball is when you have a clear cut, and for my money, top 15, maybe even top 10 player of all time in Nikola Jokic. I know it's a little early for that, but Swipa, I know you're not going to be the one pushing back on that. And that guy is pushed to their limit by an all-time great team. Like my ultimate example of that, like LeBron Game 1, 2018, like that is the best basketball game I've ever watched someone play. And I think we could get something like that from Jokic in the series because Oklahoma City, like the team that had the greatest point differential in NBA history in the regular season, they're good enough to push them. The reason it's 2 for me is like, I think Denver is going to be exhausted coming off that last series. I think Oklahoma City is going to be very fresh coming off theirs. I like Denver's like championship medal to extend that to 6. I just think there are going to be games where Denver's exhausted and they maybe just don't have the juice to keep up with Oklahoma City. That being said, if they can drag them into the mud, if they can like get them just late in games and like force Denver's role players to hit big threes while like MPJ's up for that, Aaron Gordon's up for that, Jamal Murray's absolutely up for that. Like it could get really interesting. But I have Wolves Warriors at number 1. I hear you. There's a world where it's a quick series. There's a world where like what I just said about Denver is all applicable to Golden State and they're just too tired. I just think the Warriors will benefit from not playing the Rockets anymore in the sense that like it will like obviously Minnesota's long physical defenders to throw out Steph and he'll get beat up. It just won't be in the same way. And I do think you'll see them operate a little bit closer to the team they were post Jimmy, which by net rating was like a top 3 team in the NBA. And I think the Timberwolves are just exceptional. And I look forward to like Anthony Edwards and Steph just having like one great, like old school gunslinger match. I think that was going to be so much fun.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a really good series. Number 1, like I said, I think for me is Cleveland Pacers. Like I said, I think that's going to be a real 7-game series in a lot of shot making. So I can't wait to see how that one ends.
All right, cool stuff. He's Swipa. I'm Gavin. Check him out on Locked On Nuggets. Check me out on Locked On Knicks. Both our teams are still alive. You got to check out the Locked On NBAs where we have some skin in the game. But until next time, we'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On NBA Game Night.